Hello, basketball fans. Welcome to a new episode of Around the Rim on ESPN's YouTube. I'm your co-host, Terrika Foster-Brasby, joined by co-host LaChina Robinson. And LaChina, first off, where are you? Because you've been in New York for forever, it seems, with the first round and the semifinals. So where are you now and where are you going?
I'm on the West Coast right now. I'm not quite in Vegas, but I decided to come out to West Coast and get adjusted to the time change. But I will be headed to Vegas tomorrow. Super excited, obviously, to be there for the first round, and then headed to New York. And actually, our WNBA Countdown show will be in the arena for the finals instead of in our New York studio. So super excited to be in these venues and to get to see all the fans and be on top of the excitement, Terrika.
Yeah, no, I'm going to meet you in Vegas for game two. I won't be there for game one, but I'll see you there for game two. I'm getting to Vegas on Monday, but it is certainly going to be an exciting WNBA Finals. I think that everybody is about to get what they expected they were going to have at the beginning of the year. I know the television networks are going to be excited to have the ratings that are going to come along with it. Fans are obviously
let me just say this while you are on this topic, because I am annoyed with people who were in my mentions about the term super team.
Like, don't bring it up, but since you did.
Yeah, so New York and Vegas are pegged or given the title super team in the offseason coming into this year. Who cares if Vegas wasn't called a super team last year? Who cares how the team was configured, whether it was through the free agency or it was through the draft? The term super team, when I use it, means that this team has a lot of the best players in the league on that one team. All WNBA, MVP, all defensive teams, defensive players of the year. Why do y'all have to overcomplicate everything? Like, I get it that you obviously don't have a lot going on in your lives right now or ever. And so you just want to kind of pick a fight or a big deal about nothing. And I'm fine with people disagreeing, but like, y'all, why do you just expect that you know my definition of a super team? I can use the term in whatever way I feel like it, because to be honest, it's not even in the dictionary. So we can all give it whatever definition we want. Get a life. All right, I'm done.
Let's talk for my girl and her mentions, period.
Like, and you know me. First of all, people don't even mention me on Twitter. Like, I always have to hear that somebody said some third person. Like, go ahead and add me. But I did put something out there about Super Team, so I actually got the responses. And so I'm like,
I get it though. Like, I get it. Like, so I feel that people, not you, because I know your stance. And we've had discussions where we felt like everyone talking about these the first super teams. No, had y'all not seen Minnesota for 4 years? Like, that was a real super team. Like, super team been in this league before.
That
did
part.
y'all not see
that part?
The super team been in this league before. So we see
that.
But I think what most people who have not been able to expand their mind is they saw the super team moniker being placed when Candace and Alicia and all, when they were brought over, and considering they're not playing anymore, Candace isn't playing anymore, they feel like, well, oh, this is the same team from last year, so it's not really a super team. And so if that's how you feel about it, that's totally fine. But I'm one that's going to be consistent. And if we've been calling them super teams since before Candace before Candace stopped playing, I'm not about to change my mind now. Like, it kind of is what it is at this point. As y'all know, I stick to what I stick to, right or wrong.
They still have 3 number 1 picks.
They do.
Their starting lineup.
They do. They do. Like,
people are wild. I just had to get off my chest. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm at that point right now where I'm just like, listen, and y'all know I'm not going to get back on Twitter and argue with y'all for free. Like, I get paid to do this. So why not do this where I get paid on our YouTube channel? So if you want to know how I feel about you and my mentions, come watch the show. Give us some ratings. How about that?
Period. And with that, let's talk about how we were both right and wrong about what was going to happen with Las Vegas. Because let's start there. Las Vegas is, got the home court advantage. They, swept Dallas in the semifinals. You and I both said on our previous show that we thought Dallas would come out and at least take one at home, take this series to 4 before packing it up. But they didn't even get a chance to do that. They didn't get a chance.
And on the last show, I corrected myself on the last show. I said they weren't going to win the game.
Run the tape, Andrea.
Please run the tape because I'm pretty sure I said that.
We said we both agreed. We thought they would take one at home, but that would be it.
The show before last, I think I had some faith that they could win a game, but I feel pretty confident in last show. I was like, this is a wrap. Wouldn't have been surprised if they had won one at home, but I wasn't feeling it.
Andrea, I'm gonna need you to do LaChina like how y'all did me with New York. Okay,
please
that's
do.
that.
The last show. It got to be the last show.
The last show. It was the last show.
Moving on to Dallas, Vegas. This series could be over. This series could be over, and I'm going to backtrack. I am going to seriously backtrack because I came on this show and said that I thought that the Wings had an opportunity to upset Vegas. They don't.
But with that being said, Las Vegas just looked dominant. They just did what they did. I mean, Dallas tried to make a go of it towards the end. Didn't score in the final 5 minutes of the game, essentially. Just inexperienced players didn't play to the level that we had seen them play to throughout the course of this season. And again, I think it's just really attributed to being in the spotlight, being on that stage, having to really step your game up in that moment, and having no one who had ever really needed to do that in that situation. So that's how Las Vegas moved into the finals. But on the opposite end, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on that series at all, but
just that I feel even more confident in Las Vegas's ability to make a run in this finals because they won the first 2 games against Dallas, scoring 90 or more points. The last game they won scoring 64 points. So I saw a different side of Vegas where they struggled with turnovers, where they, in this series, they struggled with turnovers, in particular in that final game. Were not at their best offensively, but they really, their defense, you don't hear people talk about clutch defense. Their defense down the stretch of that Dallas game 3, the clinching game, was outstanding. I just thought that they showed, to your point, their experience and how elevated they were and mature they were in that moment. With Dallas being one of the younger teams in the league, I just thought it was more apparent with how they locked in defensively. So not that they're not capable and their defense hasn't been good. It's actually been exceptional in the playoffs. I think they're holding teams under 40% shooting. But in that last few minutes of that game, I was really impressed. And they showed me that they can win games in a variety of ways.
Yeah. And no need to, no, I'm going to mention, but of course we know the standout was A'ja Wilson in all 3 of those matchups. She just really asserted herself, dominated. 34 points in the first game, 30 points in the second game, only 13 points in the third, in that final closeout game. But to your point, they really asserted themselves in a different way. And they really spread the ball out. All 4 of their 5 starters were in double figures. And so it just seemed to be a bit more of a defensive matchup in that final game versus the offensive powerhouses that we had seen previously coming into that. But on the other side of the semifinals bracket, the series was a bit more interesting. It was Connecticut and New York. The New York Liberty advanced, winning that series 3-1, but they dropped the first matchup, right? And we talked about it on our last show, what some of the things that we noticed with how New York played or didn't play, and certain players who had stepped up. We mentioned Benijah Laney and how important she had been, JJ and how important she had been. But I think that last game, that game 4 was very interesting and very telling about how important these players are to this team, really, like how this team really goes. I mean, New York won that final game 87-84, and it was down to the wire, to the point where I was waiting to see it. And to be fair, because we're not going to drag Tiffany for how that game ended. I think she just kind of lost track of the clock, thinking that there was more time on the clock than there actually was. But with that possession, with 6 seconds left, I had no idea how that was going to end.
Well, to me, it looked like DeWanna was supposed to cut to the ball. So there's America's play where you drive baseline and then you pitch back for a three as your teammates cutting behind you on the three. I didn't see DeWanna move in that direction. So Tiffany really did not have that pitch back. And Stewie was there, but you still got to make the cut, and that cut never happened.
See, I didn't notice that she didn't cut. What I was looking for was when I noticed that she was driving in, it looked like she was trying to take the step back to think about taking the final shot, but then took an extra dribble. Because even if the cut didn't happen, she took an extra dribble that she didn't necessarily need to take in that moment. And so that's what made me think that maybe she lost track of the clock, because that particular dribble was so unnecessary that by the time she even attempted to just throw the shot up, the clock was already over. And into our point, on a number of occasions, Connecticut not having a true point guard hurts you in those moments. Like Ty Harris would have been great, I think, setting up a play in that situation, but I don't even remember who was all on the floor that moment. Ty Harris had already made some big shots, to even get them in a situation where they had that last opportunity. But I have to go back and watch it again. I just remember watching it from a wide angle and be like, why isn't DeWanna cutting? Because Tiffany could have pitched it back. I don't know. But yeah, hey, hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is definitely 2020. And it wasn't the ending in terms of the play, wasn't the ending that I think we were expecting with such a high climatic game, but the result ended up being the same, that that the New York Liberty would go on to win that matchup 87-84. Benijah Laney, 21 points from her, Breanna Stewart, 27 from her, and Jonquil Jones, another double-double, 25 points, 15 rebounds, just continuing to assert herself and be dominant on the board. And so now again, we have this super team matchup, and I got 3 questions for you, LaChina. Question number 1, coming into this matchup, who do you believe has the early momentum? Now, I know who I believe, but I want to hear you first. Who you think have the early momentum coming into this WNBA Finals?
Well, that's a good question, T. I will say that I think New York is more prepared at this very moment for what they're about to face. And that's nothing against Chicago and Dallas, but I don't think either one of those teams prepared Las Vegas to the degree in which Washington and Connecticut have pushed New York. I think New York is going to come in with a lot of confidence because they did face the third best team in the league, lost their first game at home, and then were able to win their next 3. Like that's a mentality and a confidence that you get from being in that situation. Washington pushed them to the brim. So they felt a little more pressure, I think, to start than Vegas has, which I think starts out with giving them a little bit of a mental edge. But how about you?
Yeah, same. I actually think New York has a bit of the early momentum as well, but for just a slightly different reason. Outside of being a bit more battle tested coming into this, I think they feel like they have nothing to lose in a way. They're a team that haven't been in this position in over 20 years. Las Vegas, I feel, has a bit more pressure on wanting to win. And they won't say it. I don't think they'll admit it. But I just get that feeling. It's not easy to go back-to-back. You've been predicted to be the best team to go back-to-back all season long. You've had the best record. You've been talked about as the most dominant. People basically betted on y'all to win this from the very beginning. And now you're here in this position against a team that has won in your building before. So it's not that you have we have the home court advantage mentality where we know we can win here. This is a team that knows they can beat you here, right? And so I think that them having that notion that we're really playing with house money is what really gives New York a little bit of the mental edge here and a little bit of the physical edge. But what scares me, and this leads me to my second question, is, what scares me is that we have not truly seen Breanna Stewart be Breanna Stewart for New York. Leads me to my second question for you, LaChina, which is, what do we need to see from Stewie in order for her to really show, one, that she is truly the MVP? Because I know we saw MVP Stewie first half. Second half, it's really felt like it's been more JJ, more Benijah. But what do we need to see from Stewie? How does she need to adjust in this finals versus what we've seen from her specifically offensively in the first 2 rounds of this playoffs?
Yeah, I feel like Breanna found her stride a little bit in the last game, last 2 games, quite honestly, even though I don't think she shot particularly well in game 3. And I can't remember her game 4 line off the top of my head, but it was efficient. And she looked like she needed that trip back to Connecticut. Had New York been in a series against anybody else, I don't know that Breanna Stewart would have regained her form. I think going back to that state where she won 4 championships at UConn, Chris Daly and Gino Auriemma being in the crowd, half of the Connecticut Sun crowd cheering for Stewie. I ain't even gonna get into that right now because I went to Twitter about some issues I had with the crowd around Alyssa Thomas, because they should have been chanting MVP when she was at the free throw line, but they were still torn around their loyalty to Breanna Stewart. But I feel like she started to find her stride. And I would have to go back and look, Terrika, but I don't believe that Breanna Stewart played particularly well in the games that New York won against Las Vegas. So to feel as though Stewie has to do something that she didn't do in New York's wins in the regular season in order for them to win may not actually be the case. Somebody's got to show up, but I don't know that it's Stewie. And so that, again, gives New York some confidence that, hey, Stewie hasn't necessarily played well in this series, even when we've beaten Vegas. So is there really pressure on her to show up? I don't think there is. And I think that's the part of being a super team that we don't talk enough about, that it actually takes pressure off of your star. You know what I mean? Like, you have so many players that are capable of impacting the game in a major way that this is not going to be as much of Breanna Stewart versus A'ja Wilson as the narrative drivers want to make it. There are actually a lot of other really talented players on these teams. Now, does both of those players being on the floor and being dominant and being the 2 best players in the world change how you guard, where you help, all those different things? Yeah, you need them on the floor because the defense has to pay attention to them. But their numbers in the regular season aren't blowing me away, in particular Breanna Stewart's numbers. So I don't know that that's going to be a factor.
I agree with the notion that she hasn't really been effective. A lot of her offense have come late in those games that they won because it was really JJ and Benijah. And even that one game, it was Marine because she had 18 points off the bench.
Right. And that
propel. Yes. So I agree.
All the 28 games, she was 0 for 7 from 3.
Yes, she was.
And they won.
Yes, and they won. Exactly. Right. So I completely get where you're coming from. And I guess the nature of the question, which you answered, is do we need more from her? Right. And so, yes, I feel like you're always going to need more from her. But at the same time, to your point, when you're playing with a stacked team, you can afford at times to have other players step up and play huge, like Benijah Laney, like JJ, like Marine coming off the bench, like Kayla Thornton crashing the boards from time to time. You can afford to have court, and we still haven't even mentioned Courtney Vandersloot, which it comes to my third question, which is, this is going to be in some points in this series a battle of the point guards, and you got Courtney Vandersloot and Chelsea Gray. And oftentimes we've discussed on this show how important it's going to be for any good team in this league to have a true point guard running their team. Well, now we've got a matchup where we've got two of the best to do it. Who do you feel has the advantage here when it comes to the point guard to point guard battle?
Their roles are very different as point guards, Terrika, quite honestly. It's almost like comparing apples to oranges, in my opinion. I love that we have so many different types of point guards, and I'm not even going to get into it, but Andrea Carter has actually declared that there's a point guard shortage, a true point guard shortage in the WNBA. I would agree with that. The scoring point guard has become more popular, and with the retirement of Sue Bird, I have said that the past first point guard is a thing of old. There's a new era, and I understand it because everyone on the floor in this version of the WNBA has to be able to score the ball. So this is where Courtney Vandersloot and Chelsea Gray are very different. Courtney Vandersloot is capable of scoring, and when she does, it makes New York extremely dangerous. However, she is what I would say is a pass first point guard. She has to help New York get the ball moving. They were not up on their assist numbers in the semifinals. They were not against Washington. And credit those two defenses, who are two of the toughest backcourt defenses that you will face. Washington, because of their personnel, Connecticut, because of how well they're going to scout you, they're going to take away their tendencies. So her job has been hard. The ball has to be moving through Sloot. On the other side of that, to me, Chelsea Gray's shot-making ability when in isolation separates Vegas as a team. It separates her as a player, and her ability to make decisions and score in the clutch is absolutely priceless in the playoffs. So that is more of what I see her role as. And to me, that is more important. That is more important. I believe that in clutch time, Chelsea Gray is not only one of the higher scorers in that time, not the highest this season, but she is the most efficient. And I'm pretty sure she has no turnovers in clutch situations, which is, I believe, 2 minutes left on the clock, close game, etc. And so that is much needed in a series where two teams will be that evenly matched. So to me, Chelsea Gray is more important for Vegas, but their functions are essentially very different.
All right. Bringing it down. I think that it's going to depend on New York's defense. And here's why. I feel like whenever one of the things that I love most is I love to see Chelsea Gray when she's making these inside passes. And New York has done a good job of cutting that off. I see that a lot when she's playing them. So that means that she goes from being a pass point guard to being a scoring point guard. That's when we see the 22, 23, 30-point Chelsea Gray performances, and they might need that in this particular matchup against New York. And so I agree that Courtney Vandersloot, the way that she moves the ball, the way that the ball movement for New York is what makes them so dangerous, right? And the fact that they have so many people who have the ability to score from different points and different points on the court is also what helps to make them so dangerous from an offensive perspective. So for me, I think that Courtney Vandersloot is going to be just a bit more important for her team because when that ball stops moving for New York, what does New York do? You can't always count on Breanna to be able to pick up the slack from that perspective. And defensively, you certainly can't count on Breanna to do anything for you for that perspective. And yes, I said it. I think Breanna Stewart was a defensive liability, but that's neither here nor there. With that being said, I feel like in this matchup, it may be more important for Courtney to continue to ensure the ball is flowing, to keep New York in positions to be scoring effective on multiple parts of the court than it is for Chelsea, because Chelsea's ability to score still adds a layer of effectiveness for Las Vegas. So that's me. So prediction time. But I'm going to do predictions a little differently this time, LaChina. I want to hear one of two things. So New York can win this series if. What's the
New York can win this series if Jonquel Jones is dominant. If she can score 20 points and 10 rebounds in 3 or more games, New York will win. Vegas will win if Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum can limit their turnovers and they shoot a high percentage. Those are two things that have to, which essentially means decision making for Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum. They have to have a really good series.
Got you. Okay, I think New York wins this series if JJ continues to double it up. JJ has to be that. I don't want to call her an X factor because she's not an X factor. Like JJ is a factor, point blank and period. I think she's the person that will essentially be the one that took the scales here for New York. This is gonna be wild, but I think Las Vegas wins. I think Las Vegas wins this series if they continue to use their defense to fuel their offense. They just got to stop New York from doing whatever. They got to limit the ball movement. They got to limit them spreading the ball. I think their defense is what can help propel them to a victory in this particular matchup. So predictions time. I am going to take the Aces in 5. I think the Liberty win game 1 on Sunday, but I think the Aces will eventually win the series in 5.
Ooh, I usually don't do predictions for a series that I'm covering, but I'll just take the opposite. I'll say New York in 5. Okay. Not that I actually believe that, but it makes the show more fun.
TV. It makes for good TV. It makes for good TV. I get it. So before we get out of here with this show today, LaChina, there are some exciting news for the WNBA that was announced earlier today. Kathy Engelbert did say officially and held a press conference earlier to announce that the expansion of the WNBA is indeed happening in 2025. There will be a team located in the Bay Area. The Golden State Warriors have bought in as partners. This team will play at the Chase Center Arena in San Francisco, and they are extremely excited about this opportunity. So I watched the press conference a bit earlier, and just a few notes from that. They don't have a name just yet. So, they're still working on what they're going to call this team. They are expecting to have another team on board for the 2025 season as well, because they don't want to have an odd number of teams in 13. Obviously, 14 would allow them to have 7 teams in the East and 7 teams in the West. An expansion draft would be expected to happen. Kathy ideally said she would like to see that happen in late 2024 after the picks have been made in terms of the draft lottery, but before the WNBA draft in the 2025 season in April. And then she closed by saying that the competition committee and board of governors are actually going to meet after the WNBA Finals to really discuss more in depth about what that expansion draft would look like, the process of, selecting another team for additional expansion. But teams that were mentioned was Portland, Toronto, Philadelphia, Charlotte, and there was one more that she mentioned. So yeah, are you excited? What are your thoughts on this new team coming out the Bay?
Well, this is such a multifaceted, nuanced conversation. I'm feeling a lot of things. First of all, I'm very happy for fans in the Bay. This is a part of basketball country that has proven that they support basketball, that they love the sport. And you can see that in what they do with the Golden State Warriors. I'm also happy because from the outside looking in, this is a ownership group and an organization that can fully support a WNBA team. Not just have one, but fully support one. And that to me is the number one criteria when we start to talk about expansion. Is I don't want any more folding teams. I don't want any more moving teams. The fact that we don't have Sacramento, we don't have Houston, we don't have Utah, we don't have Detroit. Teams have had to move and teams have folded, etc., due to just the lack of resources and support. makes me sad. And so I don't want to see that for the WNBA anymore. Orlando, I mean, you can add Miami, you can add on, so many teams with Cleveland that have had to go away. So that's number one. Number two, we've all had the conversation that we feel like prior to expansion, there's a lot of things with the W that need to be addressed. Charter flights, more roster spots, etc. So I'm still very much torn around what the priority should be right now. Yep. I have also been of the feeling that the league that we have needs to be fully healthy and functioning and at its best before we start adding teams. But, it can't be denied that this is going to add another market to WNBA fandom and add more roster spots to the league for, players that are getting cut in the second, even first round sometimes now because the league is so competitive. So there's more spots. So I'm really happy, but I also want to say this. I want the WNBA to be accessible to everyone. Mm-hmm. San Francisco has a wealth gap issue. There are people that can access wealth in San Francisco, and there are some that cannot. And it often has to do with racial divides, as far as how socioeconomic resources are distributed. And so while I am happy for all fans, I hope and pray that the WNBA feels accessible to people in the Bay that aren't rich, period. I hope that they feel like they can attend games, that they not only have the money to pay for tickets, but can get to the arena, because everything's expensive in San Francisco. Yeah. Parking, existing, it's expensive. And so I just can't wait to see how they market the team, who they're going after, that there's the diversity in fandom that's important. And that's what I said about Denver. Like, I think Denver is a cool place. That was the other place that they were talking about expanding. And I actually asked this question of WNBA fans on Twitter. I was like, hey, how do y'all feel about Denver? Or no, I said, what's important? Hold on one second. I said, how important is diversity in the WNBA city? Because Denver is not very diverse. And I have to look at San Francisco's numbers, but I do know that the wealth gap is divided by race. Yep. And here are some responses we got. Yes, because Denver is not a diverse city. This is when they first announced Denver. Diversity needs to be at the top of the list. Some people said it's less important than people think. Look at the attendance in Vegas, Phoenix, Seattle, Minnesota. Not a lot of color in those crowds, but I'm like, isn't that? And meanwhile, Atlanta and Washington moved to venues because they weren't drawing big crowds. And I'm like, that was whack.
That don't even make sense, but okay.
Right. The players have to live in these cities, at least during the season. So it should be a place where they feel comfortable living in. And that's another thing. It's like, are they environments where they see themselves? So anyway, I know that's a long drawn out answer. I'm happy for the Bay. Happy to have another team. And I just hope that the priorities in picking these cities are a reflection of the women that are playing on the court.
Yeah, great points. I'm with you there on the diversity issue. A couple of other things to note with this is that they are going to carry the Golden State name. So even though they don't have a mascot name, it will be the Golden State whatever. Joe Lacob, who is the owner of the team, who is also the owner of the Golden State Warriors. He actually used to own the San Jose Lasers, for all of those who remember the ABL. And he has made it very clear that, top-notch facilities, they're going to actually be using the facilities that they just built as well, and make that their headquarters. So he is very adamant about ensuring that this team is not just some team that they are going to just have for the sake of having, that there is a true investment into this team. And he definitely has the financial backing to do it. And he has already made a claim where he said, we will win a championship in the first 5 years of this franchise. So he out here now. He said the same thing about Golden State, and they were able to do it. So when he took over the ownership group there. So I don't know. I'm not saying, but I'm saying you look around, you see players, you know, like Haley Jones is from the Bay, Chelsea Gray is from the Bay. You know, I'm just throwing it out there. I threw out there earlier in a tweet that I think it'll be interesting if Cameron Brink enters this expansion draft. You know, her relationship with Steph Curry. So I think it's great from that perspective. And I love the excitement that we're going to get. First time since Atlanta will we be having this, because that's the last time in 2008 that we've had an expansion team added. So I'm excited about that part, but I definitely have not lost sight of the other things. Yes, this could potentially be an adding of 44 new roster spots if they and when they add an additional team. So that too is exciting. But with this new ownership, with the way Claire and Josiah have wanted to do new things in New York, with the announcement recently about this $10 million facility or something that's being added to the Mercury and the Sun, it seems like these owners are starting to really speak more about the financial investments that they want to incorporate into these teams. Larry in Atlanta has spoken about it as well. So it looks like the league is really going to have to make some decisions in terms of what they are allowing these owners to do, because if they want to do it, then we should let them do it. So
well, guys, make sure you're watching these games in WNBA Countdown. We'll have an hour-long show Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, leading into the game at 3.
Yes.
We'll have a show at least 30 minutes before every finals game.
Yes.
Terrika and I might do a little something on Twitter, which when I see her for game 2, we might pop in, do a little video or something. But yes, make sure you hit us at Around the Rim with all of your comments on Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter, whatever. Make sure you hit us with all your comments on Twitter. And then I'm at LaChina Robinson, and Terrika's at She Knows Sports.
I am. And if you're driving or you ain't somewhere where you can't really sit down and watch TV, you can definitely catch us on Hoop Streams at 2:30 on Sunday.
Yes, catch T on Hoop Streams. She's going to be, her and Christine going to be holding it down. Make sure y'all.
Yeah, we got Raj joining us this week too. So that's exciting. Speaking of the Bay, speaking of the Bay, we got Raj coming through. She gonna hold it down. Stanford Cardinal in the building. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a great show. Peace out.
Y'all next week.